Hi, Shubham. Thanks for joining us. My name is Mona. I'm the founder of a company called Upraised. We're a platform that helps people transition into product management. Just curious about how people do interview preps. We thought it would be a great idea for us to actually do a mock interview with Shubham. Maybe we'll just quickly start with an introduction of Shubham's background. Thanks so much, Shubham, for joining us. It'll be great if you can tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Thanks for having me. So I'm Shubham. I graduated out of IIT Madras in 2019, about 6 months back. I majored in mechanical engineering there. Spent 5 years doing bachelor's in mechanical engineering and getting a master's degree in product design. And
Very cool.
post college, I'm currently a product manager at Flipkart as a part of their APM program. With respect to why I am at this position is probably because I tried a wide spectrum of things back in college. I tried leading few teams in college and collaborating with various teams to organize the technical festival of IIT Madras. Did a couple of internships and projects with supply chain companies like Hindustan Unilever and Mondelez International. Then got into product development because I was part of a summer school, which gave me an idea to like just develop a product, patent it, go through the end-to-end process of making a product, right? So while I was debating which choice to make as the first job, I saw this opportunity as something which was a mix of all of them. And on top of that, being Flipkart being like the poster boy of startups in the country, the kind of impact that I could see potentially having on the products that I work with was very high, right? So which is essentially the reason why I chose to join Flipkart as an APM.
Fantastic. Flipkart is a very sought after company, especially the APM program. So, congratulations on making it that far. That's fantastic. I think I just want to dig in a little bit about your background. You said a few things which are very interesting. The first one being this idea of doing a bunch of different internships. How are you able to do these internships, and which one of those internships do you think was one of the more important one that made you either stand out as well as your own experience that helped you understand that product management was where you wanted to be?
So there's this competition which Hindustan Unilever conducts for the top 6 IITs. It used to be called TechSpark. This competition was essentially using some technology that we learn in our colleges and apply in a real life scenario in factories of HUL. One of the suggestions that I had given them was this came from my experience in my previous internship, which was at Cadbury. So I'd seen that the quality inspection on the conveyor belt and in the production line is done manually, right? And it's a very tiresome task for these employees. And not just that, you essentially miss out on picking out every defected product from the line. So what I had suggested was infrastructure of high speed cameras and computer vision algorithms that we can use to automatically detect defected products on the line and kick them out there itself before the packaging is done. For this idea, they had given me 50,000 as seed funding and had told me to develop a prototype of sorts.
Oh,
And
wow.
went to the Pondicherry factory of HUL where they manufacture Surf Excel soap bars. They gave me a concise problem statement to figure out the whitening of the soap bars, made a small prototype about how the algorithm will work. And then I finally went on to win that competition among all the IITs. I think,
Bravo. Good job.
yeah, so I think that competition mainly sort of reinforced my inclination towards an opportunity like this. And
Mm.
then in my final year, I obviously came to know about the APM program and took a shot at it and, got lucky and I'm here at Flipkart now.
Oh, please don't say lucky. You guys are all going to see how much time Shubham has spent into actually preparing for the interviews. And I think it's one of the things that we want to highlight, which is I think a little preparation can go a long way and that can make the difference on what type of company you end up at. And that's the whole objective of this video series. So first we'll basically start with asking a problem statement and you're going to see Shubham answered as a prepared candidate and Shubham answered as an unprepared candidate. And so you'll be able to very easily spot the differences. Shubham, are you ready to get started?
Yes, let's start.
Cool. Awesome. So the problem statement we're trying to solve is let's try to figure out what are the root causes of traffic in Bangalore and what are some ways we can reduce it or improve the effectiveness of the roads.
All right. I'm just going to use my notebook for doing like few rough work.
Absolutely.
All right, so that's a very interesting problem because I have seen it personally now that I'm staying in Bangalore for about 7 months. Reducing traffic in Bangalore is what we are aiming to solve here, right?
That's right.
So Uh, I think right at the top of my mind, I can think of Uber as a very good example to solve something like that. I have seen a lot of my friends and colleagues take just one cab when the cab can accommodate like 3 to 4 people to travel even a short distance, right? So I guess something like Uber Pool sounds really like the need of the hour, and I think that can help us reduce traffic for sure. Then I can think of one solution, which was I've seen my friends say this to me that they would love to ride on a bicycle on their way to work. So I guess something like having some sort of a dedicated lane of bicycles which incentivizes users to start using bicycles while commuting in Bangalore on a day-to-day basis sounds like the solution for reducing traffic in Bangalore.
Interesting. Interesting you say that. Curious. Let's dig into your first idea first. So, why do you say Uber Pool could be an idea? I mean, it already exists, right? So people can take Uber Pool. Uh, why do you think it has not created the impact it should have?
So I think right now the sort of limitations with Uber Pool currently is the fact that it's not convenient for everyone who's traveling. The first one being, so if let's say a Uber Pool car has to have like four riders, then given how intense the traffic is in Bangalore, just to pick these four people, the driver would have to spend about an hour easily on a busy day, right? So I guess because it's highly like inconvenient, and because there is no incentive as well to do it. If you think about why would the first rider who choose to take the Uber Pool, uh, apart from the slightly lower cost in traveling from his place to his destination, I don't see if he has to spend an hour just picking other passengers then being dropped at his destination. I don't see if it's useful enough. I think he would rather prefer to take a direct cab from his source to destination. So I guess one is because it's not convenient, people simply choose the slightly costlier option of taking a direct cab.
So it's really not what you said. It's really not just having Uber Pool. We need to make some changes to how Uber Pool is operated today for it to effectively reduce traffic in Bangalore. So got it. Let's dig in a little bit on your bicycle. I felt that that was a very interesting solution. I've actually never heard anybody else say this, so I wanted to kind of dig in a little bit on that. Why do you say we need an extra lane for bicycles? How did you kind of come up? I want you to walk me through your thought process.
Sure. So the way I thought about it is, if we think about a truck versus a car versus let's say a two-wheeler, in comparison, if we have these vehicles on a road, compared to them, a bicycle would take a much shorter. One individual bicycle would take much shorter surface area on the road. What that basically means is we could have significantly more number of bicycles on the same portion of the road, and hence have more people commuting through the dedicated lane. Uh, so I guess better usage of the surface area of the road uh, it is something that I'm thinking about. And if it's in, why a dedicated lane? Because it sounds like an incentive for people who are using bicycles.
Interesting. So I think your thought process is fairly accurate in that what we want to optimize is we want to get the maximum usage of the surface area that we have on the road, right? To help most people move from point A to point B. The problem I'm having and not fully understanding is, do you think what are the current challenges in using bicycles? Is dedicated lane one of the problems?
That's interesting. So I think one of the challenges, let me just quickly list down what I think are the challenges for
Yeah,
using dedicated
sure.
bicycle mainly. All right. So here's what I think. For bicycles, currently the scenario is such that it's very unsafe, both in terms of the road conditions
Mm-hmm.
and given population in a city like Bangalore. So if you're commuting on a bicycle, you would need that extra gear of your filter mask or a helmet, and I guess that's one of the definite problems. A second one would be specific to if the conditions are favorable. By that I mean, if someone is working as a business counterpart, they would have to wear formals or suit. I don't think it's favorable for them to commute on a bicycle, right?
Okay.
And especially like the peak summer months in the city. So weather versus and the attire both would contribute to it being not favorable. Right now, there are not enough people already using bicycles. Compared to other metro cities in the country, Bangalore definitely has a favorable weather, but still there are not enough people using bicycles. So definitely, it being unsafe and not it being not favorable, I guess, are two biggest what do you say, the bottlenecks for using bicycles.
Got it. I can definitely relate to the problems, the relate to the challenge of safety. I feel, if I don't feel safe, I would definitely not use that mode of transportation. So having a dedicated lane definitely solves for that. At least mentally, it makes me feel like I have the freedom to, to drive a road without having to, go between cars and trucks. And obviously, given, the lightness of the vehicle, if a car hit me, then I would basically be, I would get into a major accident of sorts. So that definitely, I feel like a dedicated lane would solve for it. One of the things that I'm not sure, and I'd like to like to learn about your thought process is what is the implication of having a dedicated lane to the cars traveling on the road, and is the dedicated lane, are there enough people wanting to commute? Just because this solves the safety problem, will enough people get on the roads to actually reduce traffic? Because I want to kind of understand what your thought process is there.
All right. So what we are essentially discussing right now is, instead of having a dedicated lane for bicycles, what if we have a lane for cars, correct?
No, I think what we are discussing is if we have a dedicated lane for bicycles, then the cars have lesser space to move. So what does
Okay.
that do to traffic? And
All
the
right.
second thing we are discussing is, are there enough bikes in the first place to actually use the dedicated lane? Because otherwise it's going to be counterproductive, right?
Perfect. Yeah. So first, thinking about if there's a dedicated lane for bicycles, what we are essentially doing is, on a limited space of the road, we are now creating a section which
Mm-hmm.
cannot be used by other vehicles,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes.
What that means is they will have less space, they will be more constrained to move, and essentially that section of the road will be heavy with the traffic, right? And it will move
Correct.
slower as compared to the bicycle lane.
Yeah.
Uh, that's a definite outcome of having a dedicated lane for bicycles. And I think from my observation, I have seen a lot of cars in Bangalore in particular. So I guess if we have a dedicated lane for bicycles, the cars will suffer a lot for sure. So because they will essentially get lesser area to commute on the road.
Yeah. Yeah. That was my hunch too. So unfortunately, the solution you're recommending might not work for the Bangalore situation because I think first there needs to be. I think given that there is limited road space, it's not like Delhi or Gurgaon where you have 4 lane roads on each side, where just changing one out of the four will not have such a dramatic impact. Whereas in Bangalore, most of the roads are 2 lanes, and so what that ends up happening is if you just change one into a dedicated bike lane without enough usage of it, is going to negatively impact the cars, the amount of space the cars have to move around, and just lead to actually more traffic. And it's also human emotion. When you're stuck in a long traffic zone, you see people breaking laws, right? So highly likely most people will not even stick to this 1 lane car. They will just move into the dedicated bike lane, and it will kind of defeat the purpose of what we're trying to achieve, right? So all right. But thanks so much for walking me through this. Is there anything else you want to talk about the solution, or do you think these are the two ideas that you had?
I think these two ideas, sort of in the Bangalore scenario, seem very relevant to me. So I guess these are good solutions. So yeah, that's about
Okay.
it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, as you saw, Shubham just answered the question as if he was an unprepared candidate. The common mistakes most people make that I want to highlight right now are: number one, you don't pause to think, you don't pause to ask clarifying questions. It's very important to know what you're solving for before you start thinking about the solution. Without digging into the problem statement before understanding the exact use case you're trying to solve for, it's very difficult to come up with a solution that's actually effective and going to actually somehow mediate the problem. It's also important to have clarity in your thought process, how you sort of make decisions. It's always better if it's backed by data. Sometimes it cannot be backed by data, but at least it definitely cannot be backed by that's what my friends think or I've heard and said, I have noticed this. It has to be a little bit more than anecdotes. It has to be driven by some amount of data points. It may not be many data points, but there has to be some foundational data points to be able to justify your own thought process, to be able to communicate and articulate why you came up with the solution. And having a rational point of view through the solution to know, okay, look, this is how I came to it. These are some assumptions I made, and this is a solution I'm suggesting, and most importantly, ending that solution with, here's the impact I hope it will have. So typically a good problem solving question should address these points. We're going to do another take of a mock interview with Shubham. And this time he's going to be acting as true Shubham, who's actually prepared himself significantly and spent a lot of time and effort before he appeared for his Flipkart interview. So let's see the differences. I hope you clearly understand what it takes to become an APM and the effort it requires to actually prepare yourself for the interviews. So here we go. We're going to try to solve the same problem statement, but now with a prepared Shubham. So Shubham, we're trying to solve for a problem statement around traffic in Bangalore. You live in Bangalore. I'm sure you experience it on a daily basis. This is one of the most talked about things on Twitter about how, every time there is a conversation on Bangalore versus Delhi versus Mumbai, always traffic is the point at which Bangalore falls short. So we want to address the question of understanding how to solve for traffic in Bangalore.
All right. So we are looking at solving the problem of traffic in Bangalore. It's a very interesting and urgent need, I feel. So before I jump to solving it, I just have a few clarifying questions. When you say traffic in Bangalore, are you speaking about the traffic on public roads due to cars, autos, and buses and etc.?
That's a good question. Yes, we're speaking about, we're talking about traffic on public roads due to motorized vehicles. So you can take that as a starting point.
All right. Now, I would like to understand when you say you want to solve, like perhaps look at reducing traffic in Bangalore. Are you looking at some particular time of the day or days of the week where you are aiming to solve this?
That's another good clarifying question. I think that the traffic problem is definitely aggravated during peak hours. So let's focus our time and effort into solving identifying traffic solutions for peak commute times in Bangalore.
All right. Now, I would like to understand when we are looking at solutions which will reduce traffic, what is like the current traffic level and by how much are we looking at, reducing it?
Let's assume that at a peak hour, we have about 300 to 400 vehicles pass a stretch of about a kilometer, and typically at the speeds of 15 kilometers an hour. So let's aim to reduce it by 15 to 20% in the next 1 year.
Interesting. So we are aiming to reduce 300 to 400 vehicles passing at an average speed of 15 kilometer per hour on a stretch of 1 kilometer section of the road in the next one.
That's right.
Right. So since we have to think about solutions, I'd like to understand here because traffic on public roads can be solved by both public and private interventions. So are we looking at one particular type of solution for the implementation?
We can look at both private and public interventions, and we can then maybe prioritize at the end. I think right now, I feel that everybody feels the pain so much that even private corporations might be willing to help because ultimately it ends up increasing the productivity of their employees. So I think both solutions are up on the table, and we can then prioritize based on at the end based on what we think is a viable solution.
Perfect. So I have one last clarifying question. Since we are looking at a timeline of 1 year for implementation, I'd like to understand if there are any budget constraints as such that we have for our solution.
That's a great question. Budget is always a constraint in pretty much every situation. So I think we want to, let's assume that we have to maximize the reduction in traffic with the least amount of capital expenditure in the long term. And the reason I say that is, when it's the least amount of expenditure, it's easier for us to actually get buy-in from the stakeholders, whether it's private or public. So let's try to aim to get a solution with the least amount of capital investment.
That makes sense. So I'd like to take a minute right now and structure my thoughts,
Sure.
and then proceed to the case.
Please do.
So this is how I want to structure this case. So we are looking at aiming to solve traffic in Bangalore. So to do that, firstly, I'd like to analytically model what traffic means. Once I do that, I'll apply a few real life constraints that are specific to our problem with respect to Bangalore. Once I do that, then we will figure out the root cause of what is causing traffic in Bangalore, right?
Sure.
And once we identify the root cause, I'll discuss the solutions with you, and at the end, suggest solutions in my synthesis.
Fantastic. Sounds good. Let's go.
So in order to analytically model traffic, I'd like to imagine portion of the road. Let's imagine a portion of the road of length L and width W. Right? This portion, for simplicity, let's assume is between two junctions, which is J1 and J2. And what that basically means is there is no junction in between the section of the road. So now to visualize this, I'll just quickly draw this. All right. I think you can see on the screen right now that I've made a section of length L and width W between two junctions J1 and J2.
Fantastic. I can see that.
Right? In order to now think about what traffic means on this portion of the road, let's imagine that there are n number of vehicles on this road.
Okay.
Right. So I think first I'd like to define traffic by intuition. I feel, traffic is something that if there are more number of vehicles on the road, then we essentially say the traffic is a lot today. So what that basically means is traffic is directly proportional to number of vehicles, but also on the road, which is, let's say, not 2 lanes or lesser than usual size of a normal road. Because the area is small, we say that the traffic is more, like it cannot accommodate enough number of vehicles. If we define something called as traffic density, it's essentially number of vehicles divided by the surface area of the section of the road where they are traveling. So it's essentially the length and the width of the road.
Makes sense.
But when you think about traffic overall, there's also a factor of speed. Like, in fact, in the clarifying questions, we discussed that currently 300 to 400 vehicles pass at an average speed of 15 kilometers per hour.
That's right.
If there are no bottlenecks in such a model, they can in fact pass at a much higher speed. And that also means traffic is flowing at a really good speed, right?
That's right.
So what that basically means is traffic essentially is inversely proportional to speed. So I'd like to just formulate traffic finally as traffic density by the average speed of vehicles.
Awesome.
All right. So one interesting thing, one to notice right now is I just thought about it that the average speed of all vehicles traveling as a part of a group on this section of the road would be same irrespective of the size of the vehicle, because because they are traveling at a constant distance and it's not changing a lot at a peak hour. So all the vehicles would have the same speed.
That's right.
All right. So now that we have analytically modeled what traffic essentially means on a road, let's look at few constraints which are specific to Bangalore and let's apply them to our model, right?
Sure.
So I think from my observation in the past few months, I have seen that majority of the people commuting in Bangalore during
Mhm.
office hours are these people who are traveling to one of the tech offices, because all of us know that Bangalore has one of the major populations of startups and tech companies, and
Mhm.
people from all over the country migrate here. One thing that I have noticed is in the initial few years, and this is also because it's relevant to me, none of my friends also have bought a personal car for
Mhm.
commuting.
Mhm.
We prefer to take the cab because we are early in our careers and we would not prefer owning a vehicle so early on,
Mhm.
right? And I guess people who are settled in Bangalore, because they are settled, they have families here, they would essentially have a car through which they are traveling. Moving forward, for thinking of the constraints,
Mhm.
I'm thinking about what's the mix of all these types of vehicles on a typical Bangalore road, right? So I'm trying to think about how many cars there are as a percentage of all vehicles, how many trucks there are, how many two-wheelers, autos, etc. there are.
Yeah, that's an interesting insight. That's a good way to sort of quantify what type of traffic is moving between these junctions.
All right.
So I think you can get going on that.
Looking at all types of vehicles, I feel from my observation, and tell me if this assumption is way off from what it ideally is. I feel
Mhm.
there are about 50 to 60% vehicles on a typical road are just cars. Can I assume 60% as the number of cars on a typical road?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
All right. In Bangalore, particularly, the metros are not at all spread across the city. It's just one phase of the city, which essentially means that it's very negligible because of
Yeah,
how less people are, number of people are commuting through it.
that's a good
So,
assumption.
and then the other public transport is buses. That's about 10 to 15% of the traffic, given the size of the buses.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
And then we have autos and two wheelers having the rest of the 10 to 15%. And so if you think about a section like an outer ring road, which is like a popular road here in
Yeah.
Bangalore,
Yeah.
there are also trucks on that road. So various other types of vehicles, heavy duty vehicles as such, would also occupy the road. So I'm just
Sure.
counting them under miscellaneous and taking them to be about 10% on a typical day in Bangalore.
Sure.
All right. So looking at the split here in terms
Mhm.
of what percentage of each
Yeah.
type of vehicle we have, I'd like to prioritize and focus on cars specifically because that's a major chunk of all the vehicles. Can I go ahead with that?
Yeah, I mean, since cars are, the highest of the percentage in terms of at least peak hours, I think let's focus on that. That's a good area to hone down on.
Perfect. Okay. Right. So, as we firstly discussed, the cars will be a mix of both people traveling through cabs and through their personal cars in Bangalore. For
Hmm.
simplicity, let's assume a 30% each split of cabs and personal vehicles. Is that fine?
Sure, that's a good assumption.
So now we are primarily looking at applying this constraint to the analytical model that we discussed,
That's
right?
right.
We came up with modeling traffic as traffic density by average speed of vehicles. Now let's look at specifically for cars what does that mean,
Mm-hmm.
right? Traffic with respect to just cars is essentially traffic with respect to just cars is essentially the number of cars on a typical road, the length and the width of the road.
Mm-hmm.
This is our traffic density and the average speed of these cars,
Mm-hmm.
right? So as we can see that we have found out a metric that sort of represents what traffic is due to cars in Bangalore. uh,
Fantastic.
since we are aiming to now reduce it,
Mm-hmm.
I can look at three levers in which we can do it, right? Looking at the metric, we can either decrease the number of cars,
Mm-hmm.
increase the surface area,
Mm-hmm.
or lastly increase the average speed of all the cars which are traveling. which sort of seems very intuitive as well, right? If we decrease. All right. So since we have three levers, let's look at them one by one and think. Let's now discuss solutions specific to them.
Sure. Let's go.
So with respect to just decreasing the number of cars, firstly, we'd have to think about why decreasing the number of cars would help the traffic situation overall. We know that if we have less number of cars, then the area that they're occupying, the speed that they're traveling will essentially increase. But the assumption that I'm making here right now is these three levers are MECE. What MECE essentially is mutually exhaustive, but collectively mutually exclusive, but collectively exhaustive. They are not dependent on each other.
That's right.
Right. So now let's look at how we can reduce the number of cars in the city from our assumption that there are 30% cabs and 30% personal vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But now let's look at what number of cars means if we know how many people are traveling through them.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So number of cars is essentially I'm just multiplying this by number of people traveling through cars.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I've just essentially multiplied the numerator and the denominator by number of people traveling through cars. And this is a summation. The second part is a summation of all the cars that are on this road. So this comes from my observation, and you can tell me if I'm fine with making that observation. Is that the people traveling through cars, while a typical car can accommodate up to 4 people, there is usually just one person traveling in personal cars, and usually just the driver and the rider commuting in something like a private cab.
Yeah, that's generally true. You can assume that. That's a fair observation.
Perfect. All right. So what that basically means is if we increase the number of people traveling through cars individually, what that will essentially lead to is lesser number of cars on the road, right?
That's
so instead of 4 cars for 4 people, we can do that with just 1 car.
Yeah.
Right.
So in the equation that you've laid out here, you mean on the number there is the number of cars on the road, right? Not just the number of cars, right?
Yeah, on the road. I'm talking about the model that we spoke about, right? So this is with context to that.
Got it. You might want to just change your whiteboard to say number of cars on the road so that you're clear as you're thinking through this.
Sure.
But that's fine.
All right. Sure. So I think this concept as such is quite popular everywhere in the world. It's basically carpooling, right? We are essentially trying to accommodate more people in a car. But it's popular, but it's not yet, the adoption for this is not yet that popular, right? So let's look at why it's not popular and if we can even address a solution like that. I guess with respect to carpooling, convenience, in fact, I just take 10-15 seconds and list down what are the issues with carpooling today.
Sure.
All right. So I've listed down 3 reasons that I feel, I can bucket why carpooling is not well adopted in Bangalore. First one, this is something that I've personally felt, is convenience, right? I would want the car to pick me up right at my apartment and drop me at my office. What that basically means is I need people who are traveling also for the best possible scenario to be traveling from my apartment to my office. And that's a very rare scenario to have. Second would be that there's not enough incentive to use something like carpooling. And by that, I basically mean that even if I decide to choose to carpool from my apartment to my office, I am saving marginally on the cost of traveling daily, but my convenience is compromised to a large extent, right? I have to go an extra distance at a peak time in peak traffic time in Bangalore, that's a lot.
Yeah.
I personally there's not enough incentive. And lastly, I feel because the first two factors are not clicking, availability as such of having carpooling options at every peak time is not that is not widely spread across the city.
Got it.
Right. So I think right now, just thinking of solutions of how we can do this. One of the things I'm thinking about is Ola and Uber both are quite popular in the city.
Yeah.
And since we discussed that in peak office commute hours, these are all the employees traveling to their startup or tech company offices. I can think of a private corporate partnership of sorts with the ride hailing companies and companies like, let's say, Flipkart, wherein they identify people staying in one area, figure out a common time which is mutually agreed by both these people, and have these shuttles sort of go from to and fro from these locations.
Makes sense. Makes sense. I definitely think convenience is a big problem. And like you said, one of the challenges is to find density of people from point A to point B, wanting to commute at the same time. And I think corporations have a large role to play in that because there are, large chunks of people that are in that space, which then makes it easy for them to actually identify these things, right? So I think that's a good idea, and I think it also ultimately it's in the benefit of the corporation to do that because if we've known and many different types of research has proved that if the commute times are shorter and people feel less pain during commute, they have higher productivity. So it's only well incentivized for the corporations to actually pitch in there. So that's a good idea. How do we actually think about is there any other creative solution we can add to this where it also incentivizes not just the corporations but the employees to want to use carpooling, to get them into the habit of wanting to carpool?
Yeah, sure. So when we're thinking about the second point that I mentioned, right, incentivizing carpooling, today because of that extra travel distance and hence time, the personal car owners also don't have an incentive to ask other co-colleagues in the company to commute with them. So one top of the mind solution that I have right now would be what if there's a dedicated lane for people who are using carpooling as we want them to. So I think right now all over the country they are implementing these things called as fast tag, which are basically for automated checking out through the toll booth across the highway. Right. So I feel a simple infrastructure scale up of having high speed cameras, having computer vision algorithms can help us decide which cars have 3 or more people traveling, and we can have just a dedicated lane for these people.
Or if it incentivizes them.
Correct. Yeah. And
that's a good idea.
Even if they're compromising on traveling that extra distance to pick their colleague up or pick another rider up, because they have this incentive, they will essentially travel to their destination the same time.
That makes sense. That's a good idea. Awesome. Any other thoughts?
Yeah. So we looked at the first lever when we listed down 3. One was decreasing cars. Second was increasing the available area for these cars, and then lastly increasing the average speed of commute on this particular section. So now let's look at the second lever, which is increasing the area, right? So if you have to think about this model that we sort of model analytical model that we draw on this section of the road, a dedicated lane would mean a constant area available for the cars, and that basically means that now in the L cross W area, a small portion of the area is essentially dedicated, and what that means is that the area cannot be I mean that's obvious, cannot be used by other people.
That's right. Not so obvious.
But if we have to increase this, the infrastructure costs are significantly high, right?
Yeah.
In a metro city, especially, and not just that. While it is being constructed, we can see it everywhere with respect to metros. It's very inconvenient for that 1-2 year period while it is being constructed.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess because we are looking at 1 year timeline, it doesn't make sense to have infrastructure change for increasing the area,
Mm-hmm.
right?
That's right.
Uh, Now, lastly,
Good.
looking at
I think I just want to point out one thing. I think it's good that you're sort of reflecting on the constraints because it's important because we want to hit this metric in 1 year. Infrastructure is not a choice we have.
perfect, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, lastly, looking at the third lever that we listed down, right?
Mm-hmm.
Average speed of all these cars.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if we just look at this model between two junctions, the way to increase average speed is to not have bottlenecks anywhere in between,
Mm-hmm.
right? What that basically means is if we ensure smooth flow of traffic everywhere, the average speed of all of them can increase, uh, right? So I guess having something like so I've seen this in multiple cities, having a dedicated flyover connecting two junctions. So
Mm-hmm.
the incoming traffic from this side essentially will get split into two parts. People who want to take this route,
Mm-hmm.
the others who want to travel straight will take the flyover and
Mm-hmm.
not contribute to the traffic here,
Yeah.
right? But again, since this involves slightly less infrastructure investments, we can look at if this solution can be done in just 1 year, and if we can get maximum ROI, like we discussed earlier.
Yeah. Do it for a few high traffic junctions, right? Not just all junctions. Makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah.
Awesome. I think we've kind of covered fairly effective solutions. I think this could actually be a good starting point to sort of explore how to solve the traffic solution in Bangalore. And I'm pretty sure everybody in Bangalore will thank you for that because they definitely feel the pain on a daily basis. Can I ask you to kind of synthesize the case now so that we know exactly how we're going to solve it and where should we start?
All right. Can I take few seconds to just summarize everything and then synthesize
Sure.
it?
Sure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. So we should prioritize and aim at reducing the problem of traffic due to cars primarily in Bangalore. And we can do that in the three following ways.
Okay.
First one, to have corporate partnerships of these companies with ride hailing companies like Ola and Uber. Secondly, would be to incentivize them in the right way by having something like a dedicated lane where we only allow carpooling with more than three people traveling in a car. And lastly, we could have at major junctions, at major peak traffic points of the city, we could have dedicated flyovers connecting them, so that we essentially split the traffic into two and also increase the area, thereby increasing the average speed of commute in the traffic.
Fantastic. That sounds like a great starting point. I think this is probably one of the most effective solutions I've heard so far, and like highly practical solutions I've heard of actually reducing the traffic problem in Bangalore. Thank you so much for walking us through your thought process, and good luck for the rest of your interviews.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.